For somebody that's, a newer agent that's getting started in the business, I think it's really important to have that conversation of, okay, this is the reality of being an agent. And sometimes it's amazing. We'll have multiple closings in a month and see a lot of that success. Maybe you close a really big deal and things are awesome and happy, but there are months where you may not have a closing, or your marketing or your prospecting isn't where it needs to be. Sometimes you really have to dig deep, right? So for me personally, I have 2 young boys, 5 and 9, and I love being a dad so much. But ultimately, my why that drives me every day is making sure that my wife is in a situation where she can take care of the boys, making sure that we have everything situated at home, making sure that I have time to coach the Little League team, making sure that I have time to help out with soccer. So that's my motivating factor. My favorite part of that was just the ongoing training, helping agents kind of develop their career and grow, working people within the organization, kind of put it all together.
Welcome everybody, I'm Kamil Sarji, the host of Just 2 Minutes, and today I have Jesse here. Jesse, you want to tell us about yourself?
Hello, my name is Jesse Andrews. The short story is, been licensed since 2015, currently working as a real estate coach. So what I do is I basically help newer agents get up and running, figuring out what the business looks like, how to lead generate, how to prospect, and also working with current agents who are kind of in a rut. Maybe they're struggling for production. Maybe they kind of need a little kick in the butt, a little bit of accountability, a little bit of a motivator to really get going and build their career. Very much like you, Kamil, I love systems. I feel like if we're going to create a business and not a job, we need to get systems in place and really kind of, responsibly grow our business so then we can handle the leads and handle the business and live happily ever after.
Absolutely, absolutely. As you know, this show is called Just 2 Minutes. And I have my timer here to keep me on track. But I have some questions for you. So we're going to get started. Now, if your life was a TV show, what TV show you think it would be?
That's a great question. I'm very much a family man. So that's my priority. That's kind of what drives me. And
Family Guy, then?
I do love me some Family Guy, but we're a little bit more wholesome than that. I don't know. That's a heck of a question. I would think it would probably be a sitcom because I have 2 young boys and it's always a comedy. There's a little bit of drama involved. It's a juggling act, and those of you that are juggling family and business and sports, and my wife and I, we coach a lot of sports. So I don't know what the heck TV show that would be, but...
All right. We can come back to that. But if you could, when you're closing a deal or closing deals, if you could pick one Halloween costume that you can wear when you are closing the deal, what Halloween costume would that be?
Probably a carpenter, because you're doing a lot of different things, a lot of different tasks. So general contractor of everything.
Or what daily thing that you do that gets you jump-started for the day, or something that you do daily that other people don't usually do?
I think it's all about the morning routine. Getting yourself situated, getting a good start to the day, coming off of yesterday, knowing what you need to do to attack the day, get yourself organized and prioritized to really succeed.
Who's your favorite Looney Tunes character?
Probably the Roadrunner. That was the quickest 2 minutes ever.
Roadrunner is pretty cool.
I like it. Always being elusive, and Coyote was just always trying to get him, but he never could.
So Jesse, real estate coach, that's a lot of weight and pressure. When did you know that this is my calling? I like this and I'm really good at what I do. So
I think a lot of that comes from, in a previous life, my previous career before I get into real estate, I was in charge of training. I would travel around pretty much East Coast United States for a restaurant company, and I would work individually with different trainers and different managers to help get systems up in place. Go figure, right?
Wow. Okay.
So then when I get into real estate, I worked for a company, and I didn't really know what I didn't know. And until I hired a coach eventually that helped me put everything together, a lot of things clicked. Meanwhile, I had gone and opened my own brokerage in Greenville. By far, My favorite part of that was just the ongoing training, helping agents kind of develop their career and grow, working people within the organization, kind of put it all together. Fast forward to today, I'm in an office where my wife and I, we decided that trying to juggle all of the things that keep a brokerage running, it was not my forte. I really wanted to focus on the training aspect. So that's kind of where I am today. And I get a lot of gratification, a lot of satisfaction out of helping somebody put it all together. Because most agents, honestly, they have everything they need. They have the training, they have the intelligence, they have all of it, but it's putting it together, coming up with a plan, helping them with their scheduling, talking about non-negotiables. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get it. And as they start closing deals and reaching their goals, for me, that's very rewarding.
Nice. I know it takes a lot of patience to work with different types of people. The person holding the carrot on a stick for the horse, the horse just keeps going. But take a look at it the other way. Who's the person that's holding the stick?
Yeah.
Could be the agent themselves holding the stick, moving the process along.
Absolutely.
So for you to identify the different types of personalities you're working with, how do you find that out? Or how fast does it take you to find that out?
Actually, pretty quickly. And I believe that any kind of coaching program really needs to be focused on a good foundation, right? So getting to know the individual agent, what makes you tick, right? I'd like to find out what your why is in life. Why are we doing what we're doing? As much as we'd all like to admit that, this is a hobby that we're doing for free, it's our career, right? So there has to be a reason more than just a money motivator. And then from there, I feel like the most beneficial part to any kind of training program or coaching program is figuring out what avenue you want to take to get where you're going. So obviously as an agent, we're going to deal with listings, we're going to deal with buyers and this and that. But ultimately, I want you to find a niche where we can really explore that to laser beam focus, if you will, where we can go down that avenue, explore what that looks like and start getting progress. And then from there, we can systematize and go on. Now, I know some people are visual learners. Some people want me to demonstrate. Some people will need to know the whole process A to Z before we can even start. And that's what makes people unique, right? So identifying what that looks like and then figuring out how we can work together to help the individual learn, as well as not just focus on all this education, but it's also real world activity. So yes, we can talk about prospecting or door knocking or how to structure an open house or how to do some kind of social media campaign, but at some point we actually have to do it as well. So it's equal parts learning and fundamentals as well as action and setting goals and then the accountability piece.
Cool. Successful agents out there that have gotten to where they are, I think this is what I think. I mean, tell me if it's true or not. But like you said, a lot of agents already have it in them on what they need to do to be that high producing agent. But it's what are the things to do for them to kind of show them the light.
Absolutely. It's just staying consistent in what we're doing. So if we identify a marketing plan that we want to try it out, we need to stick with it. So yes, if you want to start a direct mail campaign, that's fantastic. But if you send out 5 letters one week, that's just not going to cut it. Now, I realize everyone starting has different opportunities, right? Maybe we have a lot of time available, but not a huge marketing budget. Maybe we don't have much time, but we have a bigger marketing budget, right? So it's kind of figuring out what works for that individual person and then utilizing their strengths to really achieve that goal.
Okay. So it's not like hit the phones, call 5,000 people a day. And it's not that.
No, it could be. If somebody had this passion of, I just want to talk to 1,000 people a day, well, that certainly could be something that works out for you. I think a lot of people don't love direct prospecting like that, cold calling, if you will. But no, I think there's more to it than that. I think there's a lot of different ways to explore marketing as a whole. A lot of times it's not even something that's super obvious, right? Maybe it's a collaboration, or if an agent loves pets, right? Has this super foundation to their pet and they love the community. Okay, well then let's find a groomer where we can co-collab and go do a campaign that way. Is that going to get you a lead right away? Maybe, maybe not. And that's kind of the intangible of lead generation. You don't really know what exactly is going to work, but it's kind of like this mix of everything we do.
Okay, so take me through your process. First is identifying the, like, how do you, okay, sorry. Instead of me like assuming, go ahead, tell me what your process is.
Okay, so if I was working with a new client, obviously the first thing we're going to do is probably grab a coffee because that's my jam.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to figure out you as a person.
How do you like your coffee, by the way?
I like black coffee.
Black, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Just black coffee.
So you'd get black coffee?
I get a black coffee and sit down. Usually a nice coffee guy.
Okay.
However, I don't mind a good hot coffee every now and then. But yeah, we'd sit down and kind of figure out, I want to know about you. I'm not, eventually, yes, I want to hear about your business acumen and what makes you tick, but I want to get to know you. I personally feel like a lot of clients that I work with me because we're very similar. We have a lot of the same life experiences. We have a lot of the same similarities. So with that being said, with a new agent, I want to sit down and figure out what makes you tick. I want to talk about your why. What's your driving factor? Because someday it's tough to get out of bed. Going to be on the phone today, or I have appointments and you're just not feeling it. You need to dig deep sometimes to really push yourself to do the things that you need to do. After we talk about that, I like to figure out what your strengths are. And that's something that can be pretty easily discovered in a conversation. So if someone's a good communicator and they can get their point across really well and they have no problem involving me in the conversation, then I don't think that might necessarily be an opportunity for them, right? That's a strong point that they have.
Yep.
If it's somebody that's a little bit more mild-mannered or meek, if you will, then maybe we need to talk about how that reflects in your client. Even though they might be a wonderful person, if you're not making contact, if you're not engaging, if you're not building that rapport, that could ultimately hurt you. So it's a little bit of objectively looking within yourself to figure out what your strengths and opportunities may be. Then from there, I'd like to explore what brought you into real estate. What was the deciding factor where you decided to enter this industry? And then we'll talk about your career path in itself. So I like to identify one thing, one subset or one niche of the population that you would like to work with. And then we'll deep dive even more. So Kamil, I want to work with buyers. Okay, great. First-time home buyers, vacation home buyers, short-term rental buyers, investment buyers, because that conversation is different across the board. So we figure out who we want to talk to, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to talk to them.
Do you help them narrow it down? Because they're like, who do you want to work with?
Exactly.
I want to work with buyers, sellers, investors, buying, selling.
And that's the thing. And I feel like the more granular we can make it, that laser beam focus, then we're going to be in a situation where, okay, great, let's develop a training plan. If you need knowledge in that area, then we're going to talk about what that conversation would look like, depending on what your marketing source is going to be. So if it's a social media campaign, if it's a cold calling campaign, if it's a direct mail campaign, we're going to talk about the ins and outs of what that looks like and really how to, approach that person. Then it's all about building rapport with your client. It's about figuring out what your client needs, because ultimately it's what our buyer client or seller client, what's what they want to do. So they want to sell the house, of course, but there's other things, layers to that onion, if you will, that we need to peel back. Making them feel comfortable, not only in your knowledge and what you can do, but ultimately the seller wants to sell their property, right? So while it may not be spoken in that conversation, they want to make sure that you can sell the property. And then obviously negotiation goes into there and, being structured throughout the process. But ultimately, I feel like when you can help your client achieve their goals, I'm always going to achieve my goals. And I see that from a coaching standpoint. If I can help that individual agent grow their business and grow their career, I'm going to be taken care of. And as an agent, if I can help my client buy or sell a property or buy an investment property or sell a vacation rental, then I in turn will be taken care of as well. But it's putting the client needs first, and then we'll always be taken care of.
Cool. I like that. The focusing, like narrowing it down with the conversation. It's
exactly.
Good. Yeah,
And
you're able to.
I feel like that's really the strong point, especially with people that want to jumpstart or want to get started. Now, that's not to say if I'm working with investment buyers that are looking for multifamilies and I have a client or somebody from marketing that wants to buy a single family, of course, I'll help them out in any way that I can. Mm-hmm. But at least getting started and, getting that database ready. Because as we all know, not everybody wants to buy or sell right when we speak with them. So that's another piece of the puzzle as well, is, working within our CRM, consistent follow-up, personal touches, which I think are really important, in juggling that fine line of we want to be top of mind and when they're ready to go, but without being pushy and be like, okay, enough, unsubscribe, because that's not what we want.
Right. Yeah, I kind of split it up into the coaching lead generating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you talked about like how to narrow and find out what their strengths are and then create lead generating process that works for them.
Absolutely. Yep.
But then there's other things like, not only is like, you're kind of like their therapist, right? It's not just about the selling, not just about the buying, like, running your business, but it's about like them personally.
Absolutely. And it's tough as an agent. I feel like as much as I love this industry and I love what we do, we're not always viewed as people's favorite person. After they call us and speak with us and work with us, hopefully they change their mind on that. But ultimately, when you're prospecting, people may or may not want to hear your message. So I think that's kind of one of those things where being there just as a listening ear, or, hey, I need to vent, or I met with a client and did this, or sometimes it's agent to agent issues where so-and-so said this, or I feel like I messed up. What do I do? Kind of coaching them through what that looks like. All right, well, I've seen this before. It's not that big of a deal. Call that agent back. Did you in fact make a mistake? Own it. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. Own it and let's learn and move on. Because very rarely is something so catastrophic that it'll blow up the deal.
Yeah.
That's all this minutia that we have in our head where that's not true. So let's take a minute. Yeah. You got this. We've talked about this. I know you know how to overcome this, and let's go. And it's right amount of motivation, accountability, in being able to deliver information that people need to hear, not necessarily want to hear. And I believe that can be done in a tactful manner. It's not like, hey, what are you doing, you bozo? It's like, no. Let's talk about this and let's figure it out.
Yeah. The getting out of bed thing. That's tough because some days people get that. Like people are like, I can't get out of bed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as agents too, as a self-employed, entrepreneurial-minded business person, you're in charge of your own destiny. So if I'm not getting up and I'm not doing the work, or if I'm pushing my coaching client meetings because I'm just not feeling it, well, it's a detriment to them, but I'm not progressing my career either. Sometimes you really have to dig deep, right? So for me personally, I have 2 young boys, 5 and 9, and I love being a dad so much. But ultimately, my why that drives me every day is making sure that my wife is in a situation where she can take care of the boys, making sure that we have everything situated at home, making sure that I have time to coach the Little League team, making sure that I have time to help out with soccer. So that's my motivating factor. And there are days where you're just like, I'm not feeling it. But sometimes we don't have the choice. But with that being said, a big thing that I'm really big on is creating some time for yourself as well. You have to refill your own cup because you're going to get burned out, especially in this business where I could be watching TV with the kids at 7 o'clock at night and I get a call and I know it's a real estate call. I have to take that. Maybe it's a coaching client and they have a contract issue. Well, that's a 911 and I have to deal with that now. Or maybe it's an actual client that is calling about listing a house, right? So we're never off all the time. Nights and weekends we always have things going on. So if you're not really trying to schedule time for yourself, I feel like you're not doing yourself a service. So maybe it's, I'm feeling the pressure, keep Friday open and I'm going to go out with the family, or maybe we're going to take a beach day. My wife and I and the kids, we love going to the beach, and that's something we like to do during the summer. So midweek for us to take a day and go down to Narragansett, that's kind of lifestyle design. That's something that we put in place. Now, maybe Thursday gets a little busier and, that Saturday is a little bit busier, but being able to just kind of clock out and refill your cup, I think is really important because burnout is very real.
Do you think that people are kind of like shy to show their weakness to you as a coach?
Definitely.
How do you pull that out?
I don't see it as a weakness, right? Where I like to talk
they're
about
embarrassed. They're like, I'm supposed to be this top, always on point. And then it's kind of like they let you down and let themselves down and let the world and the universe down. Absolutely.
And it's like this imposter syndrome where they feel like they need to be on top of everything and not letting anything slip through the cracks and returning every call in a timely manner and being on top of every deadline. And while, yes, we all strive for that, we're human. and people make mistakes. And, I'm lucky that I married a woman that's very detail oriented and very structured in the schedule, because my comfort zone is chaos, right? So that doesn't work for me. So my wife, thankfully, is any good partnership, she kind of keeps me in check, right? Yeah. And she helps me organize and prioritize and stay on top of things. Everybody has something within themselves that they don't love or that they try to hide or mask. I feel like we need to talk about that. So if scheduling for somebody or time management is an issue, let's just talk about it and we can figure it out. So maybe let's explore time blocking where, okay, we're going to turn our phone off and from 9 to 11, you're going to do this and this and this. Or maybe you need to reassess it at the end of the day. Maybe it's a task list. Maybe it's, a more fluid schedule where if something comes up, we can address that, but I still know that I need to do X, Y, Z. So everybody's a little bit different. I feel like one size fits all is not appropriate, because then it becomes like this generic program instead of like a really tailored coaching program.
So I'm sure this happened, but coaching someone and then they disappear for a few days. Again, I don't know. Are they like embarrassed because they again failed you and failed the universe? And
absolutely, I see that pretty often.
Okay,
and if somebody falls off or life happens. So I have one client, and really structured, really diligent. Kids are on vacation. He didn't make the calls he wanted to. He missed an appointment, a couple other things, and we're talking about it, and I instantly knew. So we have a Friday follow-up every week, and I can hear in his voice. So I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I had a rough week. I'm like, well, what's going on? He's like, well, the kids are on vacation, and we did this and this and this. I'm like, so what? Okay, well, you didn't hit your goal for prospecting or anything this week. That's okay. Life happens. So enjoy the rest of the week, spend time with the family. And then Monday morning, we're going to kick butt and let's go. And he did. So sometimes you have to give yourself a little bit of grace because we're juggling a lot of different things here. Life is complicated. Life is tricky. I don't want to be a source of anxiety or pressure. I want to be a gentle reminder that, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're all about. This is why you're doing this. So let's go.
What percentage of people do you think are like that?
I would say that everybody has that. Almost everybody has that inside where something's going to happen. Something's going to come up. I'm going to fall short in some way. But to handle that from a harsh place isn't necessary. Though some people need a little bit more tough love than others. My oldest son, the sweetest boy in the world, if I'm like, oh, I'm disappointed in you, that's enough where he's going to get everything in check. My youngest, he's rambunctious, and sometimes you have to be like, listen, what's going on with you? So everybody's different, and I see that with coaching clients as well. So a lot of people have that natural tendency to slip, and then if they do, they get embarrassed or they try to disguise it or hide it. I'm all about, let's put it out there. Talk to me about it. You don't need to be embarrassed. People that know me in real life will know that, I'm a goofball in a lot of ways. And, I'm just going to put myself out there. And, sometimes you need to fall to learn how to get back up.
Yeah. Would you say 60% of people, 70?
Probably,
80?
I would say 75% of people at some point will fall short on a goal.
And be hard on themselves?
Too hard on themselves, and I think you need to give yourself grace, because if you come across an obstacle and you just buckle and you don't ever persevere, that's going to hurt you in the long run, right? So I like to use the analogy where you're getting in your car, getting ready to go to the office in the morning, right? And you're sitting there and the car started and I'm ready to go. If you sit there and wait for every streetlight to turn green before you leave your driveway, you're not going to do it. So we're going to pull out of the driveway and we're going to drive down and we get to a red light. That red light being an obstacle, we're going to figure out how to get around it. We're going to, come up with a way to overcome. Then you're going to drive a little bit more and then you hit another red light. Okay, then we're going to figure that out. It's a good mix of ready, fire, aim in a responsible way. So when people do fall short or they may not hit a goal or they make a mistake, let's learn from that and let's move on. If it's a constant thing, then let's figure out where that hiccup is and why it's being a problem, why it's getting in the way for you.
Well, I like that car thing, getting out and just It's a red light. Oh my gosh, that's really cool. What do you think of people who overthink? They have all the tools ready to go, but they're overthinking things. Like, all right, so I pick up the phone, right? Okay. And then I start dialing it. Okay. All right. And then someone says hello. What do I say after that?
Right.
So what's the overthinking?
I think it's just a natural tendency. I'm a big believer in, like I mentioned before, we talk about what your strategy is, what your game plan is. And then let's just say I'm going to talk with multifamily owners who might potentially want to sell, right? And I'm going to reach out to them via cold calling, right? So we're going to talk about setting up the process, how to actually cold call, how to responsibly do that, how to respect the TCPA so we're not getting ourselves in trouble, how to respect clients that don't want to be spoken with. Then we're going to talk about what that conversation looks like. And not only to the fact of like, okay, this is generally what you'd want to say. I'm going to help you create a script that matches your energy, matches your skill set, matches you as a person. So now it's like, hey, Kamil, this is Jesse Andrews. I know this call is completely random, but I'm just calling you about your property over on Park Avenue. The reason why I'm calling is I have a lot of investors right now that are looking to buy a property just like yours, 3 units. I don't suppose you've ever thought about selling your property. Maybe it's more complicated than that. Maybe it's a little bit lighter. And then we're going to practice that. And that's where it gets really corny and cheesy, but I want you to be comfortable with it, right? I don't want you to spend your money reaching out to people or, worse yet, even possibly ruining, your image or your business image. So I want you to be ready to go, well adapted for that conversation. We talk about obstacles, right? How to overcome objections. Oh, well, if I do sell it, I'd never use an agent. Okay, well, let's talk about that. I understand. Tell me about that. Why? Well, I want to save on a commission. Okay, well, I respect that. And, honestly, I'd probably want to save a commission as well. But what if I told you that I could help you sell this property and even with my commission, you would net more money? And let me show you how. So it's being able to be comfortable with the conversation and taking those objections and kind of bringing it back into the conversation, right? But that's only going to happen if we're sitting down in the office and we're talking about what that looks like and we're practicing. And yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable and it feels super, super cheeseball, but that's what gets you there. And then we're going to practice. And I'll tell people in whatever marketing situation that you're doing, whether you're calling someone back from a direct mail campaign or cold calling or interacting on social media, at first you're going to feel like a goober. You're probably going to sound like a goober, but you'll get it, right? And you'll start to learn how to lead the conversation, listen more than you speak, but still guide the conversation to get that information that we all need to help that client. Because ultimately, the client sometimes might not even know really what they need. They want to sell the property, but they might have this problem and this problem and this problem. So as an agent, we need to help them uncover what that motivation looks like and therefore help them.
Yeah. What about the complaining? Like, oh, I couldn't do this because of that. And then these clients that I have and blah, blah, blah. And everything is against them.
Yeah, there are definitely some Eeyores that are, around. A big part of what I do day to day is a sounding board for this, or I'm really struggling with this, or this client's blah, blah, blah. And I think it's effective to hear them out for a minute, but then it's also effective to take a step back and be like, okay, well, we're not going to change this person, right? This client, or even an agent that's always kind of like a kicking rocks kind of situation. Well, you have a choice. We can go into this with an optimistic attitude and, you can think the world is against you and the real estate economy is against you and interest rates are going to kill you and nobody wants to hear your message. Or you can shift that mindset to, no, this is what we're doing. There are plenty of clients that need to sell, want to buy, need to relocate, right? So we can figure out how to help them and keep moving on.
Nice. Yeah, I know the complaining happens a lot, and it's kind of like they feel like everybody's against them. Everything is, falling apart, and which I guess the other part of being a coach, besides the lead generating, helping them with their inner self,
yes,
finding themselves, is the support. Like, oh, this happened. What do I do? Kind of thing.
I would assume, or I would bet about half of the people that I'm currently coaching right now When they reach out to me, it's not a direct real estate thing associated with a specific deal or marketing, but it's more about, I'm struggling with this, or maybe it's an internal mindset where I've never sold a property in this neighborhood. I've never had a listing before. So why would someone want to hire me? And helping them identify things that not only can help them win the appointment or win the contract, but also alleviate some of that stress within themselves or potentially stress within the client. For example, I had somebody who had reached out to a homeowner. They did, in fact, want to sell. They were asking them, how many houses have you sold? And that they had any listings at that point. So they were like, I don't know what to say. Unfortunately, that appointment never happened. They were talking to me about that. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you have that XYZ agent that has 6 listings in the area? What do you have that they don't have? Well, I don't know. They have everything and I don't. Well, that's not true. Okay, well, this person may have a bunch of listings in the area and they don't have the time available. If that house falls through or we don't sell it, is that personally going to affect them or hurt them? Chances are no. With you're a single agent. You have the time, you have the motivation, more motivated than ever to get your first deal done. You have the ability to show the property whenever someone would need to see it. You have the ability to prospect the neighborhood, to advertise an open house and do everything that you possibly can. So yeah, you may not have sales history in this area. You may not have a listing that, successfully sold, but also don't hide that. Don't try to disguise that, because why? That's can be an advantage in a lot of ways. In a lot of the coaching that I'm doing, that I'm working with people, it's helping them realize that inner strength, right? So it's not always just a very distinct disadvantage or opportunity. It's like, no, you also have a superpower. We just need to look at it in a different light.
Yeah, that's true. So you talked about the why, and I remember way back when I was a kid in entrepreneurship and, finding out your why, And it was always like money, duh, financial freedom, duh. But it's deeper than that.
Big time.
Yeah.
And that's an exercise I like to do early on, right? So if we start looking at this, Kamil, why are you an agent? Why did you decide to get a real estate license? Because I want to make bank.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But why? And then it's like, okay, well, I want to be able to, pay off my car and go on a vacation. Okay, why? Well, I don't want to have to make a monthly payment and pay the interest, and I want to take a vacation because I want to get away and travel with the family. Okay, why? Well, I want to travel because, I want to spend time with the family and I want to see a new site or a new country or experience a new culture with my family. Okay, why? Talk to me about that. They get annoyed sometimes, but ultimately what it boils down to is, well, my why is I want to be financially free so I can create memories with my children, create life experiences. So when they're older and they have children or family or whatever, they can remember this experience. They can remember traveling in, going to Italy. They can remember going to Greece. So when you really, really dial it down, you can really see that motivating factor. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize that up front. That's the thing that helps get you out of bed on those gloomy days. And that's the thing that really can, help keep you going when you need it.
Out of the people that you coach, so we're going back to that thing about getting out of bed and being embarrassed about failing. What percentage would you say just disappear?
Minimal. And, from the get-go, I believe in having, a very upfront conversation. I feel in, my experience previously with the coaches that I've specifically hired, if I didn't call them or if I didn't check in, it would just kind of go away. When I work with a new client, it's a very honest conversation of, Kamil, I'm not just going to go away. So if we're going to create this opportunity together and really figure this out, I'm going to commit to you. I'm going to be available when you need me. I'm going to do everything I possibly can. We're going to get uncomfortable and we're going to role play. We're going to talk about what that scripting looks like. But I need a commitment from you as well. I need you to be there. I need you to show up. I need you to try. Because ultimately, if we're coming up with goals and you're not even trying to achieve those goals, we're wasting each other's time. And that's not fair. Very rarely do I have people just kind of disappear. I will be hello, how you doing? We're supposed to have a call on Wednesday. Sometimes it's real life gets in the way. Sometimes they're just not having a good day, or it's a mental health day. That's normal life, and that's okay. But let's pick up where we left off. You're right. I'm not just going to let you disappear. If you decide that I do need a break, or I'm going to press the pause button from real estate, that's okay. But let's just talk about it, and let me help you. Because, we've talked about in the beginning, this is what you're doing. You want to leave your sales career to come to real estate. Great. We can come up with a, career path that's going to work for you. But ultimately, when people do, or if people do get to the point where they're just kind of becoming not very communicative or doing what they need to do, reflect back to their why. Hey, we talked about this, right? And we're setting this up because you want to create generational wealth for your sons. And this is what's going on. And if there's something that's getting in the way, let's put it out there. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how to overcome that obstacle, or come up with a plan to, reassess and touch base in the future.
Have you come across, or where you or them or both realized, like, real estate's not for me?
And that happens sometimes. I feel like when not a lot of people, but some people get into the industry, they see the celebrations. They see, oh, another closing, or, they think they know all the money that we're getting in commissions, and, I'm going to be a millionaire next year because I just newly get into real estate. They don't know what the grind is like. They don't know what that prospecting is like. They don't know what it's like to, take a phone call from somebody that was really upset they got your postcard, and maybe something terrible happened in their life that day and they just want to take it out on you. That stings. I don't care how tough as nails you can be. Sometimes that'll affect you, right? So sometimes you have these people that think the industry is sunshine and rainbows all the time. And in reality, it's not always that. And there are people that have decided that, this isn't going to be for me. I've worked with people that were painfully uncomfortable talking with people. Got to the point where they realized that, I'm not comfortable talking with people, and I don't really know what I was thinking, but this may not be for me. I think there's room in this industry for everybody, all different communicating styles and learning styles, but ultimately some people decide that this isn't for them, and that's okay. That no harm, no foul. I think there's a reason why a lot of agents are leaving the industry. I don't know what the recent statistic is, but there's a lot of agents that are leaving. And I think a lot of it is not having coaching, not having that direction, or maybe they're in a large office where there's no culture, or they don't have that continual support. Because if you just kind of hear, all right, I'm doing real estate, I don't know where to start or where to go. That's going to be the biggest factor, I think, in leaving. But when you have the support, you have the culture, you have a managing broker that's behind you and involved, and there's training classes, and that's the secret sauce. That's what I feel like.
Wow, that's great. And you're right. Like, some people, they see, closing here, closing there. They don't know the world that we live in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, I want to get my license. But I meet with people who want to be real estate agents all the time, and try to give them a little peek into the world. Because I want to make sure, like, they're investing their time into something that is what they think it is. Yeah, it's important.
It really is important too. And for somebody that's, a newer agent that's getting started in the business, I think it's really important to have that conversation of, okay, this is the reality of being an agent. And sometimes it's amazing. We'll have multiple closings in a month and see a lot of that success. Maybe you close a really big deal and things are awesome and happy, but there are months where you may not have a closing, or your marketing or your prospecting isn't where it needs to be, and that's why I feel having that why in place, having a supportive office in place, having the people that you can rely on. You had mentioned, it's kind of like being a therapist sometimes, and that is absolutely true, because sometimes we need to lift people up and remind them why they're here, what they're doing, means something. And, let's go. Being that motivator to be like, what? I felt what I need to feel. Now let's kick some butt.
Okay, so last thing I want to talk about is the pressure to do and then burn really quick. There has to be a way to enjoy what you're doing, and that being your kind of break, Because I think like a lot of agents like put, oh my gosh, I got to do this. And then they stress themselves out too much. And it's like, you don't have to, no, just chill. Everything's cool. Like everything's happening. You know what I mean? Like you have to, and to get them to that, like, because they'll burn fast and they'll be gone for a day or two.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of this. All comes from me as a person in realizing this and feeling this burnout. You have to prioritize your day. So obviously lead generation is going to be important. Does that happen every day? Well, it depends on your schedule and what you can do. But that needs to be in the forefront, and obviously following up and working with previous clients and so on and so forth. Yes, that's all super important, but it's also important to take some time for yourself. Are you scheduling a lunch? Well, yeah, I'll eat lunch when I get a chance. Well, no, that's not what I mean. I want to see it on your calendar. So 12:30 to 1, 1:15, 1:30, whatever you see fit. Yeah. I want you to go eat lunch. My office was in Greenville, and Deerfield Park was right on the corner. And I would do that. I would forget to eat lunch. And then like 2:30 hits and I'm like, I'm a zombie. And it's like, well, no, I need to take 45 minutes. I'm going to go eat lunch. I'm going to go walk around a little bit, or I'm a big baseball fan, so I'll go check out the baseball fields or whatever. So it's getting a little bit of fresh air. It's resetting. It's taking a little bit of time for myself. Those are the kind of things that will help you combat burnout, because it is very real, especially when, you might be taking calls with clients at night or doing an open house or two on the weekends or showing clients houses. Yeah, it may be only 4 hours on a Saturday, but that takes away from your leisure time or your let's disconnect from business or let's enjoy the family. I don't know about you. I'm sure a lot of agents can agree. I could be out to dinner with my wife. If my phone rings, it might be a real estate call. I instantly have that pit in my stomach of like, oh no, this could be a listing. I need to take the call right now. And I think part of that is a learning experience where it could be business, but I've also set some boundaries in my life where no, I'm going to enjoy dinner with my wife. I'm going to relax for a little bit. If they leave a voicemail, great, I'm going to call back right away. Maybe I'll shoot them a quick text, so sorry, you're at dinner right now, I'll give you a call back. Yeah. So part of that is realizing that life in scheduling leisure and scheduling things that you enjoy and refilling your cup is as important sometimes as the actual business itself. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but I do. Just seeing the people that, work so hard or burn the candle at both ends, or, I'm working 8 or 9 hours through the day and then firing up the laptop from 9 to midnight. Sometimes that has to happen. I was putting together a listing last night at 11:30. I mean, that happens. That's normal life. But I'm also going to be able to go home tonight and have dinner with the family and, have a few hours where it's just us. It's a juggling act for sure. And sometimes people just need a little bit of help with that.
Awesome. And that's where you come in.
That's where I come in. So yes, I mean, I've been there, done that. I've worked with commercial properties and large multifamilies and small residential, buyers and sellers, and you name it. So I'm familiar with that. I own and operated my own office for years, but it's not just the practical real estate advice or, okay, let's talk about the purchase and sale agreement for a Rhode Island multifamily, right? So yes, that's of course part of it too. And we'll teach you anything that you need to know, but it's lifestyle design, it's business creation, coming up with a business plan, coming up with a marketing plan. Where do you want to see yourself? Do you want to do 3 transactions a month and never have time for anything? Or do you want to do 3 transactions a month, rely on, help for that? Maybe it's a transaction coordinator. Maybe it's working with a showing agent. Maybe it's, who knows, working with hiring an ISA that's specifically calling my leads back, right? That'll free up plenty of time. So career development, business plan, and ultimately what I really want to see agents do is create this profitable career, not this high-paying job, right? Because ultimately, it's like the old adage you hear a lot of agents say, if you want business, go on vacation. Because all of a sudden I'm getting ready to go away with the family and my phone's ringing off the hook and I can't enjoy myself because I'm taking calls, right? We don't want that to happen. I want to help people grow a business where they have that support system, they have the help where, okay, maybe I am in the Bahamas taking my boys to Atlantis. If my phone's ringing, great. Well, then I have so-and-so they can handle the calls and schedule me for next week. So that's where I think the biggest benefit is.
Awesome. Yeah. So how do people find you, like social?
Yep. So you find me on social media. Jesse Andrews, my personal account, it's pretty widely available. Jesse Andrews Real Estate. They can reach out to me directly. Phone number, 401-318-3125. Or I'm sure if you reach out to Kamil, he will gladly put you in touch with me. But yeah, no, I think that the big benefit, and this is across many brands, right? This is not just I'm working with this office and I only work with these agents, because I think that having a collaborative nature, having the idea of, we have this information that a lot of people can benefit from, talking about different structured coaching programs that would be available to most people, because I know when I first started, a whole lot of money that I had to pay up front. And did I get the education and kick in the butt that I needed? I did, but it was a monumental amount of money that I wasn't, prepared to spend. So being able to give people options and help out like that, I think is a good place to be.
Sharing is caring.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for stopping by.
Kamil, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
My agent's got a squad. We all in the zone. In-house help, so they ain't doing it alone. They focus on clients, negotiating win, while the back end's hand 'em, man, that's how we spin. I hand 'em business, watch 'em all climb.